Hi there. I'm Jeff Manchester. Hi. It's my Dan Warhol impression. It's a Fabfilter video plugin for Timeless 3. Of course, I'm going to do a Dan Warhol impression. And he's not going to do a video anyway for like another 7 months. So I'm going to do a Dan Warhol impression. Anyway, hi, my name is Jeff Manchester, not Dan Warhol. Welcome to Manchester Music. Today we're talking about Timeless 3, a delay plugin from Fabfilter out of the Netherlands. Let's get into it. Headphone on. Now, full disclosure, I've never used a Timeless before. I use the stock delays in my DAWs. They've always been just fine for me. But Fabfilter is a force of nature in the plugin world. So I wanted to pay attention, be a part of this, understand what's going on. Got a copy, and here we are. Let's walk through this together, talk about it, play with the presets, talk about the modulation, and then I'm going to give you my 2 cents on how I feel about this whole thing after a couple days of play with it. So we can make it full screen, which is wonderful. UI, nice, clean, flat, classic Fabfilter. We can also change the size from small to extra large, which is wonderful. On the left, we have our delay taps, which is great. We can see the original input signal here on the left and then the taps thereafter. We can interact with this if we want, or we can control things over here from the delay time parameters. We can control the feedback. This is the signal feeding back into itself from over here. Spread things left and right. This is the cross feedback mix, which is the feedback going from one channel to another, which is great. We have effects over here, which we'll explore. We have wet kind of global controls here. And then we have modulation effects down below, which is, really where this plugin comes to life. And of course, a 6 filter EQ reminiscent of Pro EQ. So reminiscent, it behaves the same way. I just click and drag and I get my little nodes over here. And another very Fabfilter thing is that the high and low pass offer different kind of types of filters, some cleaner, some that impart more of a warm or kind of, different kind of sound. So this is very much a giving you everything you possibly need to control and create really amazing delay effects from Fabfilter. Let's just get into it. Let's just get this on a default setting and have a listen. I'm going to sync this to the host tempo in half note sequences. We're at 120 BPM, beats per minute in Logic. We have a drum loop. Here we go. We can make it all the way wet. So now we're just hearing the delay, and look how that first bar disappears, representing the dry signal. And this is how you'd want to set it up if it were on an aux, which is how you should have it set up. I don't have it set up here that way though, but you should always have time-based effects on an aux channel that you send info or you send signal to through a bus, and then it goes back to the insert. We're just playing around. Okay, so thank you, Bird. Let's talk, I'm not sure if you can hear that on the SM7B. Let's talk about what we're seeing here. So we have taps. We can zoom in and get a better sense of what's going on. We can also add taps ourselves with that little plus button. I'm going to bring it back. There's also a couple of little randomized taps left and right that you can bring in if you want. On the bottom here, we have, sorry, let's stay with taps for a second. So in the taps, you'll notice that things change as I bring this delay offset back or forward. And we have our, right now we're on, I believe, eighth notes. Yeah. So if I bring it to free, this is going to change into milliseconds, right? 0 milliseconds all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, bring it back. So we have a nice visual representation of what is happening with our taps and our delays. And the same thing, feedback, so now we have, extra taps that are a result of our signal feeding back into the plugin and getting delayed even further, which we can spread. On the left over here, top represents left as I understand it, or on the right, bottom represents right. So we have a nice visual kind of feedback system of how the delay is going to behave when we start moving things around, which is really interesting. Just going to turn off my effects. So it's all very interactive. Again, you can kind of control things from here. I'm a bit more used to controlling things down here, but also the visual feedback is really interesting too. So let's just bring things back to clean and let's try some of these presets. I'm going to bring the mix knob all the way up here so that we're just hearing the delayed signal. I'm going to attach it to the grid. Let's go for eighth notes. And let's bring up drive, which is our kind of distortion. It wouldn't surprise me if they borrowed some DSP from Saturn to kind of color this effect. We have lo-fi as well. Let's turn that on and see what that sounds like. Bit crushed is how I describe it. Very cool. Diffuse, which is something that kind of smears the sound around. We're not even halfway up the plugin or halfway up the effect and we can hear the sound of diffuse coming in. So almost a chorusy kind of effect, a reverse reverb effect. It's really interesting. Dynamics as well. Bring this all the way to the left. And we get a Phil Collins kind of gated sound. All the way to the right, we have a super compressed sound. Really cool. Let's turn that off. And then we have pitch over here, which I can turn on, bring it down 12 semitones. Or bring it up 12 semitones. Really interesting. If we don't know what something does, go over to help, click on show interactive help tips. And now when I hover over these two circles, I can understand what they do. In this case, enabling the pitch shift mirroring button at the left of the knob to invert the pitch shift amount in the right channel. The combination with the small shift, this can be used to create a chorus-like effect. So let's turn this on and see what it sounds like. There's our chorus. Really cool. Let's move over to the main delay offset control. So we have a couple of icons. We have a snowflake icon, we have a ping pong delay icon, a note icon, and then this thing over here. I'm going to turn off the interactive help hints. Click like that. The freeze, what this is going to do is it's going to capture and freeze in time the last thing that was put into the delay reverb and just the delay plugin and just kind of modulate that, and no more incoming signal is going to be delayed or modulated or affected. And you can modulate that here with some controls down there. Ping pong, this kind of puts one delay tap in the left channel and then the right, left, right, left, right, or you can change it to right, left, right, left, right, left, which is kind of cool. And you can see the taps again change like that when you click that. Again, very interactive and helpful, not interactive, but helpful visually to see what's going to happen over here. We have our direct signal, which is now disappeared because we're on 100% wet, but we get the first thing down here, which is right and then left, and then here is left and then right, which is really cool. That's a pretty quick delay time, so let's go to half notes. Turn pitch off, actually. Let's see what that sounds like. Anyway, we have our notes over here. So this is if we are synced to the host tempo, which is 120 beats per minute. We can have it kind of tap in half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th, dotted, straight, or triplet, or free from the grid altogether. And now we're dealing with milliseconds. I talked about that a minute ago. So that's really cool too. Another really nice thing is we have this, I'm going to turn ping pong off. We have this little icon, which will simulate the sound of tape when you're moving things around and manually. Let me get the kind of tape artifact stuff. And you know what that sounds like. Have a listen. If I go to stretch, we will get a different kind of artifact, but it won't be that same vintage tape ballistic sound. So it just kind of prevents that sound from happening if you don't want it to be happening. I'm sure it could be modulated in a super sound design creative way, but wanted to call that out too. So that's really cool. And then we have feedback. This is the delay feeding back into itself, and we see some taps kind of manifest here as we increase that. All on the left side or on the right. Super cool. And then cross is the is the signal going from feedback from one channel into the other. Anyway, it can get kind of messy pretty quickly. And then we have our width, stereo or mono, and then we have our wet, which we've already talked about, and our 100% wet mix. And the really cool thing is I can just protect some of the signal here from reverb, or excuse me, from delay by just bringing this in, turn this on. And now we have a high pass and then a low pass to just kind of protect the signal from getting soupy and sucked up in the delay. And I would advise anyone, whether you're using this or using a stock plugin, to use the high and low cut, or to put an EQ after the delay to really protect the signal so it doesn't get really soupy. A lot of people just do not do that and wonder why they have a soupy reverb or delay time-based effect heavy mix. Let's go over to the modulation. This is where the real fun happens in this plugin. I click this, I get access to a slider, an XY controller, an XLFO, low frequency oscillator on steroids, they call it. Envelope generator generates an ADSR attack decay sustained release envelope, or a follower, which is really good for ducking and stuff like that, or a new MIDI source. Let's say that I wanted to go over here. I like this preset. We'll go to medium. We'll go to vintage digital delay. Sounds kind of cool, but what I want to do is I want to modulate the pitch parameter here. So what I can do is go to the XLFO, click this, a new little icon appears. Then I'll drag this over here to pitch, turn pitch on, and now I have this kind of sine wave behavior that's going left and right with the track, which is really cool. So now I have this sound. If I want this amount to be a bit more conservative and not so swinging, between 3 and 9 o'clock here on this parameter, I could alter the behavior of the sine wave to make it a bit more conservative. So now we're getting just a little delicate amount of swing between those two sides of the pitch module. Or I could weight it more heavily to the left. Or bring it back to normal. And of course, there's a bunch of presets to turn this into a step sequencer if I so choose. Which is insane to me. I can affect the glide, which is going to smooth out the curve of these kind of lines here in a global way. I could offset the balance here. I could individually bring these up or down. It's up to me. It's my choice. And it's also added this ducking parameter here, which I believe is an envelope follower. And what this is going to do is duck the delay every time the input signal is present, so that we don't get a big, folks that have seen Valhalla do this, they kind of know what I'm talking about. It's almost like a compressor that is sidechained to the dry source, so that every time the dry source comes in, it ducks the delay so that they're not kind of competing with each other. And we can make that effect much more pronounced here. I'm actually just going to close this and you can hear what I mean. So when I bring this ducking all the way up using, I believe, a slider, an envelope follower is kind of behind this, I believe. Envelope follower right there. It's going to just duck the dry signal, or the wet signal from the dry. So now we really hear it when it's down here. When we bring it up, even if I bring the mix up a little bit more, let me really make this pronounced. So I brought the wet mix up a little bit more. So now we get the best of both worlds, the dry signal coming through, but the wet just kind of staying out of the dry's way. So this is a fraction of the kind of modulation that you can perform in Timeless 3. Some of the other presets, let's just go through a couple of them, really take advantage of all of the insane modulation parameter effects here. So let's start with chopsticks in Rhythmic. So what do we have here? We have a heat map showing you where certain parameters are being affected by these modulation effects down here. So we have this blue here that's showing us like where things are going on. So I can tell that this XLFO2 is affecting something over here. And if I click here, I can see the recipe, right? So it's affecting the phase offset. What's happening with the mix here? XLFO1 over here is affecting the mix. So every now and then the mix just goes wild and goes wet. Let's try another preset. The step sequencer is governing the amount of modulation that happens across, 16, I guess, beats, I think, syncopated to 120 BPM, I think, over to this mix, adding a really cool effect. So now we're getting into like stuttery vibes over here. So why don't we roll back and just go to another effect that I have on an acoustic guitar, which is soloed here. So right now I'm actually sending this to a bus, which is again how I think I'm going to advocate that you guys use it. I believe I'm still on the other Timeless. Let's go over here. No, I'm on the right one, but let me go to a general guitar effect here. Clean picking fun. So here it is completely dry. the amount of taps here to quarter. Right now we're on eighth. Generator to the diffuse. So you can see that there is a lot going on in this delay plugin. And I will say, I'll come clean here. I would probably use 10 to 15 or 20% of what this plugin can do. I think for sound designers, for people that really want to get their hands dirty with how the delay sounds, behaves, feels, looks, yeah, you can really get your hands dirty with this. But I'm the kind of guy that uses like stock delay plugin. So this is like a world of extra that right now I don't really need. But if you're watching this as someone that like Richard Devine level loves to get into this kind of stuff and modulate every parameter possible of your delay plugin, I think this is, whoa, sorry about that. I think this is the plugin for you. This is going to be an extremely, I think, beneficial investment in your time-based effects kind of collection. So overall, I think this is a great plugin. I think it sounds awesome. It's easy to use. It's getting me into parameters and modulation that I would never even think of in a delay. But I think for my purposes, it's a little bit extra, but maybe it's going to be awesome for you. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you're going to pick this up, if you have any of the other timelesses, how it compares to those other ones. If there's something I missed and didn't kind of cover, I'd love to know, and I can make further videos on Timeless 3. But thank you so much for watching, supporting. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.